university liaison, so he has all those conversations. So we are a team with an open door. We want to support you. We are so happy you're here, and best of luck for today. I hope you gain a lot from it. So I'm going to put, I'm actually, yes, sorry. I'm very proud to say that Ian Cooper is now our senior marketing manager as of the 1st of July. So we're very proud of him. So that's for Ian. So as I'm going to pass over to Mazar, who's going to give you a rundown of all the juicy, pretty stuff, and then over to Vina for what we're here for today. So good luck, everybody. Have fun. See you on the other side. Bye.
Thank you so much, Les. Ian, the party is due, man. I'll catch up with you later. All right. So thank you so much, Les. Welcome, everyone. Once again, hello, Veena. Uh, Before we get cracking with Veena, I just want to cover three things with all of you today. Very important bit. The first, that would be the recognitions. Second, on how to go about booking the exam. And third, talking about the preparatory resources that we have on our website and how to go about it, how to look for them. So let me just get the recognition bit sorted. I am gonna share my screen, Veena, if you don't mind. And okay, is my screen visible? Prakash, Meena?
Yes, Maz, it's visible.
Perfect, thank you. So that is our lovely official website. It's called Skills for English CELT. Though the navigation is pretty straightforward, for checking on which institution accepts Skills for English, please click on the option called Recognition, and there it's listed down who accepts Skills for English. On this page, while you scroll down, please do not forget to change this. It shows only 10 entries. Make it all. Voila. And that's the magic. These, this is the most updated list of all the universities partners who are working with us and accepting Skills for English at various entry level as per the programs it's mentioned. And I would also like to indicate here the country filter that you can use to sort it as per the country. This is the most handy and the most updated uh, access of list of universities for your access to look at the colleges that accept Skills for English as an entry level English language test. In terms of booking, it's quite straightforward. We need to open up this link called bookmyskillsforenglish.com. You will be greeted with this page. As per the visa that is required, be it a spouse visa, that will be A1, work permits, which is tier 2 work permits, say like a healthcare worker, chef, lorry driver, hotel. They need a B1 level of English proficiency for tier 2 level of visa. B2 generally is for study. It varies from around 5.5 bands to about around 6.5, and the C levels. Once you select and click continue, I have a few slides which I'll show. But the most important option which I want to cover is, do you have any special test requirements? Depending, so majority of the time, say like 80 to 90% of the times, the answer will select the radio button no and click continue. If you select yes, depending on the requirement, follow the on-screen instructions, and those special arrangements can be made on the day of the test at our test centers. If you select no and you click on continue, this is the screen that you will be greeted with, wherein you can select a country. Let me do that. So for instance, I'll take India, and I am based out of Bombay, I'm in Mumbai. I will select Mumbai. And once you click on the magnifying lens, you will see the list of available testing centers. So the topmost results are always the ones which are located within the city or closer to you. And then it keeps on increasing the radius. Say like it is showing around four options for me, the closest and then the second closest, so on and so forth. I can click on any of the centers, say like I'll click here on view availability. And it will show me the timings, and here the pricing is showed is in INR. However, if you are located internationally across the globe, it will show the pricing as adjusted as per that particular country. And you can simply just click on it and continue with the booking. So here you can see the availability of the exam and the price without having to have create an account, which is a very uh, good option for you or for your clients to take a look at availability or the price if they want to, because majority of the companies nowadays in a way collects information or wants you to register before even they can show you the slots. So that is something that we don't do. Now, let's come to the interesting part on how to go about preparing for the test. Now, there are uh, a lot of it will be covered, which will be touched upon by Veena. That will be very specific instructions on how to go about the components. But if I were to talk about the resources which are available on our website, the one which is very close to my heart is always it's the practice test, but I'm not going to skip the queue. Please select the option called how to prepare. And once you select that, you can always download the test taker guide. It has some very high quality information regarding tips and advice, information about the test structure, which uh, is in a very consumable and a palatable form even for the test takers. It also gives links for free learning courses and practice tests. But once you click on the test and click on how to prepare, click on this option called prepare for your test. To start with, you can always look at the video for two skills test, which is for speaking and listening, or you can take a look at the four skills test, which covers all the four components: speaking, listening, reading, writing. It in a way shows you how on the day the technology, the font looks like, or the moment you launch an exam, how it looks like, how the system is interacting, where do you see the question and the navigation pane, which in a way is a great way to feel at ease and get accustomed to on the day how the platform and the tech look like. This is more like a holy grail for all the teachers, the test specification. We always recommend you to come to our website to download this, the test specification. This is the latest version called version 7.1. All the test information sheet from level A to C are available here for you to download. Another great way to support your test takers. The marking scheme for speaking and writing is also part here. The annotated responses for A till C level are all available here. You can also practice the grammar and vocabulary. It is available for A till B level. If you want to improve your English and want to have a quick bite learning for like a 30 minutes for on all the four components, do not miss this option. This is directly from SQA. It is level specific. The moment you select your level, say you're applying for a care worker and aiming to clear a B1 level of English exam with us, uh, the moment you come to this section and click on it, it will take you to an external website of SQA wherein you can try uh, all the level specific material is available for you to practice at different components. Let me just show that there is some question. I will click on check and I'll click on solution. So as an individual, it's a self-paced learning. You don't have a time limit to finish it off in a few minutes, though it is for 30 minutes. But as I mentioned, it is self-paced. You can probably cover it in a few days or probably maybe in a week or so. But again, a great resource to prepare, and for all the levels it's available. Now, there are some other material available from Voxy and Direct English, but these are probably covered under the paid version, so I'm not going to touch upon that for now. Now, the practice test, the most important one and very close to my heart. Uh, to begin with, all our practice tests are free of cost, and we call them in a way as a level indicator test. And the reason for that, why we call them as level indicator test, is at the end of every exam you're greeted with three levels: below, close, or at level. I think below is something I will skip, but close to and at level means, at level is you have a very, very good chance of passing skills for English if you have achieved this level. Close to level, I think, some you need, it is possible for you to pass the exam. However, a little push is highly recommended. And to access the practice test, click on this, come on practice test, click get free practice test, select this option as I am test taker. This field is auto-populated, so I am just gonna skip and click on submit. I want to show you that we have two practice tests at each level. So majority of the times, you will get clients for either B1, or which is the work permits, tier 2 visas, or B2, which is for study visa. So we have a complete practice test for all four components available here, free of cost. And a downloadable version is also available of the practice test on the website. We do have a YouTube, an official YouTube channel, which has a wealth of information that you can explore, and that can also help your test takers to prepare for their upcoming exams. Uh, Something I want to quickly show all of you here is, if you want to look for your list of centers, one way of looking at it is by going to Book My Skills for English CELT. However, suppose you are in the UK and your client is in Albania or Uganda or probably in Bangladesh. You want to see the complete list of test centers which we have. You can come to this option called Test Center List. Again, the rule of thumb, change it to all, and here you have a complete list of live test centers by region, city, and you also get the complete name of all the test center partners. Well, on that note, I am gonna stop sharing my screen, and Veena, whenever you're ready, I'll hand it over to you, and we can take questions towards the end of the session on whatever we covered so far.
Thank you so much, Mazhar. First of all, let me just check with you if you can see my screen.
Sure.
Is it visible? Okay, I think I'll have to share it again.
No, sure problem. Oh yes, I can see step-in guide to skills for English CELT B1 and B2. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much. I would like to thank all my colleagues, Les, Mazhar and Prakash, and also Ian, who've done such, human work, both in front of the screen and behind the screen to help get this training off. So yesterday we saw a lot of things about, the speaking section and also the listening section. Today we are going to cover the other parts that were left out. So I'd like to welcome all of you who have joined in from different places for the second round. You've been patient. I'm very glad to know that you haven't, run away and you would like to know about the rest of the test. Thank you very much for joining in. And so let's begin. So I'm going to walk you through the other two sections, but before that, what did we cover in the speaking section and also the listening section yesterday? So we saw that there were three parts in the speaking section, and we also noticed that there were there were three parts in the listening section, and the test is a level-wise test. So which means you have students, I mean test takers who want to take a B1 test, they directly go for the B1 test. So which means they are not, the disappointment level is much lesser, and they are actually taking a test that is closer to their level. So they prepare for that, and there is no disappointment at the end of it, because half the time they would definitely clear because they have an idea about what they actually need to clear the test. So similarly with B2, when they have an idea about what their level is, and even if they're above, it's all right, but when they are below, that's when people feel disappointed. When they have to take a test which has all the four components and which is for all the levels, somehow there is a feeling that they might not crack the test. Whereas in CELT, that part of it, as I told you yesterday, one of the biggest USPs, they can take the level appropriate test and then decide. And on the website, as Mazhar showed you, you also have a test which can help you to sort of understand where your student is. They can take a practice level test also before they actually take the full practice test. So just a short one where they can see how the test is and get an idea about what their level is, and then prepare accordingly. And Mazhar has shared a lot of resources. We'll be talking a little bit about these things later on. All right, so today we'll be looking at the reading and the writing component. So to begin with, in the reading component, there are three sections. So part one, which has a series of short texts, and these are followed by one or two questions, and these are from notes and adverts. Part two is a longer informational piece. So the number of words information here increases. So there could be website information, there could be brochures, letters of instruction, and these are followed by 10 questions. Now part three is a longer discursive piece, and this is followed by 10 questions. Now in the B1 section, the item types, you always have 3 option multiple choice questions, and students, the test takers just have to match, drag and drop, and they also have the true, false, not given questions. So these are very simple, straightforward questions, not too difficult for students to answer. In the B2 item types, there are 3 options, 3 option multiple choice questions. Again, they have matching questions, true, false, not given. There is also note taking and sentence completion. So there is a response that is given, and they just have to complete the missing pieces of information. Or they might have to find out if it is true, false, or not given, and select out of choices. Now the variety of texts, there is a variety of text first of all, and the length also varies depending on which section it is. And all the topics like we saw yesterday, these are all everyday topics, and these are quite accessible to students, which means quite easily understandable. It's not too difficult. And these are all computer auto-marked. As I said yesterday, the listening and the reading section are auto-marked. Now, how is the reading skill being assessed? How is it mapped to the CFR scales? So first of all, the student is assessed on overall reading comprehension. Does the student understand what the text is all about? And then here they are looking at different types of content. For example, it could be correspondence, it could be they might be reading for information and argument, and sometimes they are just reading for orientation to understand which how pieces of information are connected, and sometimes it is instructions that they are reading. So what is tested here is, one is the skill of understanding these types of information, and also how information is organized, and see how there is argument, how these arguments are being put forth by the writer. Now, in addition to that, they're also assessed on their language awareness and interpretation. What that means is the student able to identify pieces of information? Are they able to interpret and infer? Are they able to identify, information that is where sometimes there could be pronouns referring to something, and there could be inferencing. For example, they read a piece of information and there is something that is said before that, which gives them a clue as to what it is. So it's not directly presented information, but they infer using the sentences, using the text that is given to them. Then there could be note taking also, and they also, the note taking is not actually tested. but there could be a note tape, for example, a short paragraph that they will have to complete. Here they're also tested on their linguistic competence. So here that means is whether they're able to understand different tenses, complex structures, whether they're able to understand collocations, how word forms change and how antonyms are used. So everything around language that is assessed. So they need to have all these skills for them to be able to clear this particular section. So if you want more information, you could also take a look at the test specifications that we saw on the website. Now let's take a look at what each section is all about. So task 1, it's basically the test taker has to identify the main message within a piece of writing. So what is the gist of the whole thing? What is the purpose of this particular piece of writing? What is the idea that is being expressed here? So there are 10 short texts, and messages include digital, or it could be signs or notices or adverts. The question types, as I said, they are multiple choice questions, and they answer a single 3 multiple choice question for each text. So for each question, there are 3 choices given, and they have to select one out of this. The focus here is whether the student is able to understand key information. As I said, the number of questions are 10. So let's look at a sample question. We just have a part of it here. I'll give you a couple of seconds to look at it. All right, so you will notice that this is a short note to a friend, and there are 3 options given here. Why has Sarah sent the text? So the test taker has to read the 3 options. You will see that there is information about each of these in the note, but only one is the right one. All right, so they have to select the correct one to be able to get marks for it. So this is the first task that they would do. Now, let's look at task 3. What is the overview? What does it tell us about the third task? So here they are being tested on their understanding of key messages in long form. What we saw earlier was short form, and their understanding is tested by answering the following questions. For example, here they have longer texts, and they need to explore particular topics in depth. It can be factual or narrative. The question types for testing this is a 3 option multiple choice. Again, there are 3 options from which they have to select for each question. Or they could be also matching, for example, a topic to paragraph, and then dragging and dropping where they are completing sentences or notes. Like I said yesterday, it's important to remember to read the instructions very carefully in this, because as you hover the mouse, that's when you see the options, and students shouldn't keep waiting forever to understand this. So practicing and getting familiar with the test is very important. And this is called assessment literacy. For example, finding out how to navigate around on the computer, what are the different sections and all that, and how it is assessed. It's a good idea to spend some time understanding this. Now, as I said earlier, they have to answer 2 question types, the maximum of 2 question types, and there are 3 questions per question type. Here, the focus is on detailed understanding. So now they're going beyond just understanding what the text is all about, but going a little deeper. What are the main ideas? What are some extra ideas given here, supporting ideas? And what is the gist of the whole thing? What is the summary, which includes all the main points and supporting ideas? And how can they infer from what is said indirectly also? What is the global meaning, and what is the opinion or attitude of the writer, and why is the writer writing this? What is the purpose in writing this particular text? So again, the number of questions are 10 here. Let's take a look at a sample question. A part of it is given here. So there are 4 people that are mentioned on the right, on the left, and you will see on the right, you are given questions. And it also says you may use each person more than once. So an option can match a person more than once. All right. So this is how the passage is. This is what it looks like. Again, this is just a part of it. This is not the entire one. All right, so let me go back to the question and show you. So they read the questions first. They see the questions first. They get an idea about what exactly they have to find out. And then when they actually read the passage, they are active readers. They know exactly what information they have to find out. And it's quicker to match that way. All right. So they have multiple choice questions around this. Now the second task, let's take a look at what it is all about. Here they're reading for information, orientation and instruction. So these types of information we would be looking at, we would be finding these in brochures, manuals, letters of instruction or communication, for example, from local councils or hospitals. These could also be found in leaflets, guides, for example, tourist guides. They use these information when you go actually to let's say you go out of your town to a different place. These agencies have these tourist guides, which these are booklets that they give you so that you orient yourself around the city. And there could be emails and other online materials also. The question types here are true, false, not given, sentence completion or matching. So sentence completion could be using 1 or 2 words and or a number. Again, instructions are very important to keep an eye on. And matching, for example, could be topic to paragraph. There is a maximum of 2 question types with a minimum of 3 questions per question type. And when completing sentences or notes, test takers must use the exact words from the text. So this is very important. What happens is when we are reading, especially when we do speed reading, our mind tends to predict what words would fit in. And as a result, when we read the question, we are not actually looking at what word has to be picked up from the passage, but we tend to use the words that are in our minds. So we overlook this very important instruction given in the exam. And that's one mistake that we must inform our students not to make. And the other thing that is very important is that the spellings must be absolutely correct. There should be no spelling errors for them to score in this section. Now, the focus in this area, the objective of this particular task is to understand details. Are they able to understand the gist in detail? Are they able to infer? And do they get a global meaning of the passage? Are they able to read the entire passage and understand what it is all about? Are they able to glean the writer's opinion or attitude? Is the writer for it or against it? Is the writer criticizing it? Or is the writer informing them or inciting them? What is the writer's purpose in writing this? And understand the writer's purpose also. These are the areas that are being assessed. The number of questions here are 10. Now here is a sample text. I'll give you about a minute or so to read it, since it's a slightly longer one. Now, after reading this, students will answer questions. And for the first 5 questions, choose true, false, or not given. So these are the options that they have to select. That is, either it is a true one or a false one or not given. Now for false and not given, that's the area that students generally get confused with. So it's a good idea to look at the difference between false and not given and train them on it. False is when the statement in the passage is exactly the opposite, and not given is when you're not able to get a concrete information, a solid information about it. All right. So students, what they tend to do is to just look at keywords and immediately say, aha, I found the answer. This is the one. But it might be a contradiction of what is said only when they read the entire statement and the question and the passage, the sentence in the passage, they would actually be able to find this. So they shouldn't jump to conclusions. That's the bottom line. Now the next set of questions, 6 to 10, they're writing one word only from the text for each answer. Remember, the instructions may vary, so it's important to keep an eye on the instructions. So the word has to come from the text and not from the student's own knowledge. And the second thing is the spelling has to be absolutely correct. They shouldn't misspell words. Now, some reading tips for test takers. It's an important instruction here that students must read the questions first for a feel of the main ideas in the text. So what this means is, when they read the questions first, they, as I said, they become active readers. So they know what information they are looking for. Yesterday, I had mentioned that when you go to the airport or you go to the station, you really have an idea about what you want, what sort of information you should listen for. Similarly, when reading, if test takers have an idea about what they're looking for, it becomes that much more easier for them to find it in the text. Now, the second point to remember is answer about what they can see in the text and not what they know about related general themes. For example, everybody is talking about artificial intelligence today, and there are a lot of questions about the ethical usage of artificial intelligence. Let's say there is a short text on artificial intelligence and ethical usage. Now, this test taker probably knows a lot about artificial intelligence and they know what questions are around it, but it's important to read the passage and find out what the writer is saying there and not, feed with their information, their own information. So in the test, they should answer only from the text and not from their own knowledge. The other thing is to actively engage with the text and look for clues. Now, this is a very important piece of information that you should share with your students. Now, when they are reading, when they read the statements, that is the questions, it is important to quickly underline the keywords or make a note of keywords and look for these keywords so that they can quickly find the information in the passage. Now, the second clue that I'm going to give you is, one thing is to find these words and phrases that they find in the passage. The other thing is to do a speed reading. Speed reading is first looking at the title, look at the first sentence of the passage and last sentence of the passage and get a feel of what the passage is all about. The second round can be when they read the first sentence of each paragraph and get the supporting ideas in know. So by doing this, each one will take about a minute or so. By the second minute, they have a very clear idea about what the entire passage is all about. Okay. And then it's a good idea to start looking for these discourse markers. What are discourse markers? Words like however, although, on the other hand. So these are clues that will tell the student how the attitude is changing or how the writer is moving from one idea to another. Is it additional information that is being given, or is it a contradictory information that is being, is it a contrasting information that is being given? So these are all things that students should be aware of and carefully look for these in the passage. Then when they locate the information, when they scan quickly, they've located the keywords, they've located some of these discourse markers, then it's important to read the entire sentence carefully. The information doesn't match with the question. So here, only that is enough. They don't have to understand every word in the passage, every word in the text. So sometimes there could be words that they don't understand. But when they read it, overall, they know what it means, or they can guess what it means. Now, they are not going to be tested on very extraordinary words and all that, but generally what is difficult for students to understand is the straightforward words. That's the one that, those are the ones that actually are challenging. For example, words like when there are double negatives, like unless you don't, or unless you do. So these kind of things, you should not worry about it, or something like that. When they see double negatives and all that, these are all things that could be confusing, and complex structures could be confusing. But instead of waiting for too long trying to understand every word, it's better to move on, understand it, because many a times there could be other clues in the other sentences that could help them to understand this better. Now, all the questions will be in the same order as the information presented in the text, except for matching tasks. Obviously, matching, they will have to match a heading to a section of the text. So these will be presented in a different way. So they'll have to find out, they have to do a bit of back and forth reading. Now, if they don't know the meaning or if they don't know the answer, for a particular question, it's all right. They can just guess and write. Remember, I said there's no negative marking here. They can just guess and then move on. Sometimes when they read the rest of it, they might have this aha moment and say, oh yeah, now I know what they're trying to say. And maybe they want to actually review their answer then and then correct it. So they can again go back and correct it. So they can review their answers even though they've moved on to the next question. There are more tips in the test information sheet. You can definitely go through it. There are many more tips given over there. So now let's move to the writing section. But before that, a quick idea about the recap of the reading section. We looked at 3 parts, and we looked at some sample questions, and we also saw how these are assessed. As I said, 1 mark for each correct answer. There are multiple choice questions, yes and no questions, and drag and drop for completion, sentence completion. And there were tips that we saw for students to prepare well for the test. Now let's take a look at the writing section. There are 2 sections, there are 2 parts in the writing section. The first one is an interactional piece of writing. So it could be a blog that they're writing, or an email, or a forum post, or something similar. During the pandemic, I'm sure many of you trainers took online courses, and you were skilling up yourself. So you must have come across these forums where you actually wrote your responses. You sort of interacted with other students, other participants virtually. I mean, they were not face to face. You wrote to them, and they maybe responded to what you said. So these are forum posts. So something similar could be there in the B1 and B2 writing. The recommended time is 20 minutes. The second part is a discursive piece of writing in response to a written question that is given to you. There's a task given to you, and you have to write a discursive piece. And the time given is 40 minutes. Now, in all, the writing section is for 1 hour, that is 60 minutes. And students generally, when they're focusing on one too much, they tend to miss the time. So I would strongly recommend that they keep an eye on the timer and follow the instructions for the time and manage time appropriately. Now, the prompts that provide the context and the scenario, the purpose for writing, and the audience, wherever it is necessary, is provided, and students have to focus on these things. They are very important clues for how to write. Now, the word range is provided to candidate on the prompt. So tasks marked, these tasks are promptly marked afterwards by experience markers. So it's not done immediately. That's why you have a 3 to 4 day gap, or 48 hours, depending on how quickly it is marked, and these are sent to you. Now, the skills, how are they being mapped to the CFR? In the writing section, overall, how is it in the interaction section? How are they writing? And how is it in the production? How is the written production? Are they able to write using appropriate language? Is it accurate? Are they able to complete the task? And sometimes it could be correspondence, where they are responding to somebody's letter. It could be trying to obtain some goods and services. There could be an online conversation, for example, as I said, a forum, and there could be reports and essays. So overall, these are the things that they are being, they are expected to write. Now, what are they tested on in the writing section? First of all, their completion, their overall interaction in the writing section is tested, how well they complete the task. But in addition to all this, it's also their general linguistic range. Now, nobody wants to read something that is repetitive, where students use all the time the same words, because when you assess, you cannot give them marks for this for these words, because they've already given them marks once. So it's a good idea to vary their language, unless it's some keywords cannot be changed, but the other words, they should try and use a variety of language, a variety of sentence structures, and their linguistic range, that is lexis, that is their vocabulary. They should be able to use a good range of vocabulary. Now, it doesn't mean using exotic words from Shakespeare's plays and using it here. It's not that, but using context appropriate words. Now, quite often students ask me, how do I learn context appropriate words? How do I improve my vocabulary? Now, the first thing is to brainstorm a lot of words. For example, let's say the topic is environment. So write down the words that you know already, and then maybe read an article on the environment section. And if you find words that are useful, make a list of these words that you might want to use and find out from the dictionary. So I strongly recommend a dictionary to students. I tell them every day you must make it a habit to look at the dictionary. And quite often what students do is they look at the first word that pops up, the first meaning that pops up, and then they use it. But it might not be contextually appropriate. So it's important to go through the entire word, scroll down the page, look at the word's meaning and how it is used in sentences, look at examples, learn collocations to improve their vocabulary. And also it's important to see how good a control they have over their vocabulary. Are they able to move from one word, then they paraphrase? Are they able to change the sentence structure accordingly? Are they able to use the word form accordingly? So these are all important ideas to remember, important aspects to remember for them to score well. Now the next one is coherence and cohesion. Just like in speaking, they have to keep an eye on this. Does their text make sense? Does it flow well? Are the ideas connected? Have they used a range of connecting words? Sometimes pronouns also help them to connect. So it's a good idea to practice using pronouns also for connecting. So let's look at a task one, that is for the B1 writing section. So it could be a short email, it could be a response in a forum or a social media post. We are all very familiar with social media posts, but one thing to remember is we are not writing per se on Facebook or something like that, where you can use, informal language, but here this is more of a test that you're taking. So you're also trying to show the best proficiency here, your English proficiency. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on the kind of language that one uses. It should always be respectful, and it's better to avoid slang and not become too informal. Informal, depending on the context, is fine, but when I say too informal, I'm referring to slang and becoming too friendly over there. For example, if you're writing to a colleague, you might want to think about how you write, because there could be other people also seeing it, and this would be a semi-formal situation, right? So there could be different forms of communication to which you would be responding, and the task actually starts with a context or a problem, and the audience is also identified. So you know who you're writing to. If it is a friend, we know it is an informal situation. We know if we are writing to a higher authority or somebody unknown, then it would be a formal situation. So this is something that students have to pay attention to when they are writing, because that sets the tone of their writing. The information that test takers need to communicate is given in 3 bullet points, and all these bullet points have to be covered. Preferably, they can change the order, but generally you will notice that it is given in a certain order. Now the responses can be formal or informal, but remember, it is a test that they're taking, and they should be, as I said, careful with their language. And these responses should allow test takers to respond with a greeting, with the prescribed information that is given in the 3 bullet points, and they should also close with a neat summary or comment, depending on what they are writing. So the structure is very important here. Now the focus here is how their written communication is with an identified audience. So is the student able to adapt their language according to who they are writing to? So for example, if it is a formal piece of writing, you would always state the purpose first, why you're writing. So you would greet and then state the purpose, come to the point straight away. And how is the interaction? So if it is a digital interaction, you write accordingly, because the person you know is not right in front of you. So you need to give all the information clearly so that there's no back and forth. And the purpose has to be stated very clearly. Now, there is a variety of functions that need to be covered in everyday context. For example, it could be invitations or applications, asking for information, refusing something, or it could be inviting somebody for a very formal presentation or for a business meeting. So look at all these things, and the functions for each of these would vary, and students must practice all these things. Now, the topics are generally issues of everyday life in the UK, because ultimately they're all planning to go to the UK. That's why they're taking the test. And it is accessible to all test takers. And it doesn't require any specialist vocabulary. That's why when I talked about the dictionary, I said you're looking at words that are simple day-to-day words, but not too informal. That's one thing that they have to keep in mind. And it is context appropriate, used accurately. Now, the number of words required, words in response, should be 70 to 100. So your minimum and maximum limit is very clearly given here. And the computer will automatically stop you when you attempt to write more than that. The number of marks here is 15 for this task. Now let's take a look at the sample mark scheme and the specifications. For the higher end, that is 5 and 4 in the test, for a B1 level, first of all, relevance and appropriacy of response and coherence and structure, what comes under it. So the response is, it addresses the task. So there are 3 bullet points given, and you have to have an introduction, you have to have the purpose stated clearly, and you need to cover all the bullet points plus conclude appropriately. So is all this there? Is the task complete? Is it fully appropriate? Next, the communication must be clear, and it should be managed through markers. So we know as trainers that discourse markers, we train them quite frequently with all these things, but these should be used appropriately and not overused. That's also important. Now, some elements can be connected also using simple markers, and the main idea is that it doesn't cause any kind of confusion to the reader. All right. There could be some errors in structure, paragraphing, cohesion, and coherence. This is normal in the B1 level, but these are minimal. They don't tend to disrupt the communication. All right. The next one is grammar, and here we're looking at the range and accuracy. So the student, the test taker, attempts a mix of simple and complex forms, and some of them are successful. Sometimes they are able to write it correctly, sometimes there are mistakes. And routine, straightforward expressions are accurate. And there are, although there are some errors, these do not sort of create any kind of confusion. There is no problem in the communication. But more complex structures, they may attempt it, but it's not always accurate. And punctuation is simple. So there are full stops and capital letters and a comma here and there may be okay, but they attempt it, but it is sort of accurate mostly. Now the next one is vocabulary, and we're looking at range and accuracy. The response here shows a wide range of relevant everyday vocabulary. So these must be used appropriately and generally accurately when dealing with everyday topics. So spelling is generally accurate here. There aren't too many errors. And even if there are errors, sometimes these do not cause any kind of confusion. But if they do cause confusion, obviously it would affect their score. Then comes 3 and 2, where the number of errors are more and they don't completely give a relevant response. Yesterday, we were talking also about the pass, fail and all that. And I would like to clarify here. Now, somebody who is not able to respond to the task, whose task is not relevant at all, there is no, it's not directly related to the issue set out in the task, then they would have problems with their marks because they are not able to respond to the task. All right, so that is something to keep in mind, and they might not be able to clear the test. And we will also notice when we move towards 1, the candidates' responses are substantially short, off topic, and do not address the task in any way. So here they might get just a maximum of 1 mark. So you would notice that these candidates don't make the cut. All right. Now, the writing task 1 sample is here. Let's take a look at this. I'll give you a couple of seconds to read through the task. All right, so a couple of things to note here. The tense, you have just completed a college course, so something that has just gotten over. So the tense is something that they need to keep in mind. And they're writing an email to the teacher. So what is the kind of relationship that they have with their teacher? And here they have to give him or her suggestions about how to improve the course for future students. So they have just completed it, writing an email to their teacher, and they have to give suggestions about how to improve the course. So in your email, first of all, you have to describe. So this is your background information, the text that is given here. Then in your email, describe the course you have done, say what you liked about the course, and explain what the college could do to improve the course. Now, a student at a B1 level, if they are slightly weak, what they would do is they would say the course was very interesting, I liked it. But they're not describing the course as such. What was it about? They have not given any information. The course was something to do with artificial intelligence and how to use artificial intelligence to collect data about customers in your company. So there they are describing the course. All right, it was a 40-hour course and it was on weekends. So as much information as they can give should be given in the description part. And then say what you liked about the course. Quite often I get feedback from students who are at A2, B1 level. And what I've noticed is they say, lovely, awesome, great. All right. And if they were to write it in a sentence, they would say, the course was awesome, I liked it. The course was superb, I liked it. But they have not said what they liked about the course. So here they need to actually say, I liked it because it was not very long. There were multiple choice questions. It was easy to navigate on the computer. I was able to network. So some reasons. So there's no set answer as such, but what is required here is that they develop their answer and don't just stop with a short answer. And then explain what the college could do to improve the course. 1 or 2 suggestions would be good instead of just stopping at one. Something that students could write a little bit more here would be a good idea. And they should write 70 to 100 words. Now you would see that 70 to 100 words is not very long. So students, if they write about, 1 or 2 points about each, or 1 point well extended for each of these also, they would be able to cover the entire task. Now let's take a look at a sample response. I'll give you a couple of seconds to go through it. All right, so the student has written about 85 words and has covered all the 3 points that is evident here. And we also see that student has used appropriate tenses and some vocabulary that is relevant. So this particular course, they've mentioned the course and what they learned. It was interesting. I like the topics and the teacher was very helpful. But what we notice is at a B1 level, these words would be pretty generic words and not something that is more advanced, as I would say. So maybe there the teacher can help them to do a little better. They want a higher score. All right. So this would be a typical B1 response. It's at the B2 level that the vocabulary becomes better. At this level, they're still writing very simple, straightforward words. Now let's take a look at a B2 writing task. So here they have to write a short discursive piece in response to a written task that is given to them. And the written task gives the context and the issue to be discussed. It also explains that the test takers, what they need to communicate and how they need to communicate. So there are 3 bullet points that are given, and it also tells them how they have to present this information. It means it should comprise, their writing should comprise an introduction, a main body, and a conclusion, which may involve the test taker's own opinion. It may not always have the test taker's own opinion. It may involve the test taker's own opinion. But these 3 parts are essential in the essay. One is an introduction, a main body, and a conclusion. Now, quite often what trainers think is that they are telling them indirectly that there should be only 3 paragraphs. It is not that. It just means that there should be these 3 sections in the writing. So in the main body, they might write 2 paragraphs, depending on how many ideas they have. But the introduction and conclusion is generally 1 single paragraph. All right. Now, this is a longer piece of discursive communication as compared to what we saw in B1. And here again, the issues of everyday life in the UK, accessible to all test takers. And they don't require any kind of specialist vocabulary to respond to these tasks. The number of words required in this response is 150 to 200. If you compare it with B1, this is more than the B1 response. Again, the number of marks is 15. Let's take a look at a sample question here. So you will see some people say that immediately you know that there is an argument coming up, because some people say this, then what do the others say? All right, so it's a statement that expresses 2 different views. All right, and it says discuss both of these views and then say which you agree with most. So you need to, the test taker will have to pick one. They don't have to write about both. They say which one they agree with most, and they write about earning potential, cost of university, and work experience. These are the 3 perspectives from which they look at it. All right. So the number of words, as I said, is 150 to 200 words. They cannot exceed 200 words or write less than 150 words. Here is a sample response. I'll give you a couple of seconds to read it. All right, I think this is a hot topic because the very purpose of doing this training is to help test takers to decide whether they want to study or they want to stay back at home and work, or go there and study and work, all these questions. So I think it's a great topic to discuss in class 2 and get your students' view. So some writing tips for your test takers. First of all, there is a counter that's there on the screen. It flashes on the screen, and the counter will tell you when they're going over the limit for each task. So it will stop you automatically. It doesn't tell you when you're going over. It will stop you going over the limit. Another very important tip to remember, I would like to reiterate it again because I've said this number of times, but I'd like to say this again, is to read each prompt carefully and check that all of them have been covered in the response. So there are 3 bullet points. But in addition to the bullet point, there is the background information in the task that is given. That's also important because that sets the tone of the writing. It could be a forum, response in a forum, or a discursive piece of writing, or an email, whatever it is. It sets the tone, and it also tells the candidate what they are supposed to do in their response, cover in their response. So when practicing, it's essential for students to keep an eye on the screen clock so that they know when they're running out of time. And with practice, this gets integrated into their practice also, keeping an eye on the screen, frequently looking up to see how much they have covered and how much time they have left. And this will reduce the stress because the timer is already there and there's nobody telling them actually to time to complete and all that. So some more tips. It's important, as I said already, that they must use a range of grammar and vocabulary and show what they know at each level. For example, at the B1 level, students are expected to be somewhat, independent speakers, writers, listeners, and readers, but not as, fluent as maybe B2. But at the B1 level and the B2 level, they are called intermediate users. And they should be able to use a range of grammar and vocabulary appropriate at that level. They should be aware of the purpose for writing and to whom they're writing to, and this content should be relevant. The tone should not be too informal. Remember, I said it shouldn't be too informal, neither too formal, depending on the tasks. Now, let's say they're writing to a friend, and then they say, I would be honored if you could accept my invitation to come to my birthday party. That sounds too formal for a friend. Similarly, you won't be inviting somebody, let's say your boss or somebody, much higher authority, somebody who's there. You wouldn't be writing to them and saying, hey, hi, why don't you drop in for a quick cup of tea? Tomorrow's my birthday. That might not sound the right way to address them. So that's something that test takers have to keep in mind. And the second thing is to keep spelling consistent. So what this means is if they are using British spelling, stick to the British spelling. If they're using American spelling, it's better to use American spelling. For example, the word organization, it can be written with an S or a Z. If it is written with a Z, then it would be the American spelling, S would be the UK spelling. So whatever it is, the next time they have another word, like for example, travel. Some people traveling, they write with double L and a single L. They need to find out which country uses which spelling and then keep it consistent. So they can't keep have a mix of both these spellings. And the last one is to be aware of general conventions around writing genre, as well as guidance in the test specifications. Of course, I'm sure after the session, you will all take a look at this test specifications. But general conventions around writing genre, what this means is, for example, if you're writing a complaint letter, in some countries, especially when students have to write about something, they are very upset about something, they immediately start off with their complaint. So that might not be a very nice way to start. And it's also crucial to remember that they can't be very aggressive when they write. So there are certain general conventions around writing, and they also need to understand how, for example, one writes in a forum, how one writes in an email, how one would respond to a task that is given to them if it's a discursive essay. So what are the different genres and how does one write according to the test specifications and the conventions? These are things that test takers should be aware of. Now, the other thing is sometimes students tend to write very short answers, just like in speaking. They might just give a one word answer or a very short sentence that echoes the question. Now, this means they have not fulfilled the task, first of all. And the second thing is they've just borrowed words from the question. So they are not showing their own vocabulary. This is borrowed vocabulary from the question. All right. So they need to show a range of language, and this can be done only when they write a longer answer. They extend their answer. All right. The other thing to remember for test takers is to avoid giving abstract responses. For example, if they say smoking is injurious to health, it's not a complete answer. Okay, everybody knows it's injurious to health, but why is it injurious to health? How does it harm people? So they need to extend and complete their answer. But if they suppose they were to write smoking is injurious to health, it can cause a lot of harm to people. That's why people should not smoke. This is repetitive. There's no information there. All right. And again, these are poorly expressed views, and there's no solid information there. There's no extension. There's no why or justification. There are no examples in the response. And this can also lead to incoherence overall. So it's important also that the test taker gives themselves enough time to check the answers, review their answers. When I say review their answers, it is to go back to the question and see that they have answered all the parts of the question. Maybe they could create a sort of checklist and tick and say, okay, I've covered this, I need to cover this, maybe I can extend it a little bit more. So that kind of review can be done. And if there are any spelling errors, they can always correct it. Now, one thing that I tell my students is if there are some common spelling errors that, you simply are not able to master, but you're conscious that you make these errors, it's a good idea to write it on a piece of paper, and whenever they're practicing, to make sure that they write this correctly. And over a period of time, it gets ingrained in their mind. And when they go to the test, they can very easily overcome this difficulty. So there are many more tips on the test information sheets on our website. So you will definitely be able to prepare your test takers much better than the simple tips that we have given you, with all the other tips also. All right, so let's look at a summary of all the different sections. We have spoken about all the 4 and I've introduced you to the 4. So the listening task at the B1 and B2 level. So there are 3 parts. Part 1 is where you listen to and answer questions on short recordings. And then B1, B2, there are a series of short monologues and dialogues. There are MCQ questions, multiple choice questions. So out of the options, students generally select 1 and there are 10 questions. There is no negative marking and students should not leave any answer, any response unanswered. They must respond to everything. And there are 10 questions here. Part 2, here they listen to and answer on a recorded conversation. So B1, it's an interview, a longer interactional piece, and there are multiple choice questions and there are 10 questions here. And in the B2, for the B2 test, again, it's an interview and it's a longer interactional piece. And again, there are MCQs and sentence completion. So you will see the difference here, that there is a sentence completion here and there are 10 questions to answer. The number of questions are the same. In part 3, in B1 and B2, they need to show an understanding of a recording of an extended monologue. So it's a longer piece of information that they listen to, one person speaking, and it could be a talk or a presentation. And here they drag and drop their responses. There are 10 sentences and questions. B2 is longer talk and the presentation, it could be a presentation. And again, here it's a sentence completion and there are 10 sentences or questions to complete. Now, before I go to the other 3 sections, now that you have seen what the 3 tasks are, the 4 tasks, the 4 sections are all about, I would like you to give me a quick brief on each of these sections in the chat box. How much do you remember about the speaking section, the writing section, and the reading section? So please post your answers in the chat box. So let's look at the speaking section first. How much do you remember of the speaking section? Fantastic. Three parts, okay, in the speaking section. Ankita, I see 100%. Thank you, Prabhat, for your response. All right, so while I wait for you to respond, probably you're all forming your answers or recalling what you had written. Let me go back to the speaking section. Let's do a quick summary. Again, as you said, as Prabhat rightly pointed out, there are 3 parts. The first part is not assessed. This is just to set the candidate at ease. They answer questions about themselves. There are 5 questions about themselves. This also gives them an idea about how their voice is, how they're recording it, because they can listen to this part. The voice test is also done. So they give the following information, that is their name, the spelling of their first name, where they are from and all that. And this is for about 1 to 2 minutes. Part 2 is where the test actually, the assessment starts. And here they answer 2 sets of questions. There are 5 questions in each of these sets covering 2 different everyday topics. And this is again personal context. There are 5 questions on everyday life with 5 questions. For B1, it is 4 to 5 minutes, and B2, it is 5 to 7 minutes. Part 3 is scenario based. They respond to prompts. B1 and above, they are presented with a scenario and 5 prompts. They are given time to respond to the prompts. And here it is continuous spoken turn. Again, the timing differs for each of these between 4 and 5 and 5 and 6. In the reading task, they have 3 parts, and each part you will see that the question types vary. The first one, they have MCQs with 10 questions. Second one is a longer piece of information, and it's true, false, not given, matching, and also multiple choice questions. And the next one is factual and a narrative piece, and it's longer, part 3. And again, they have MCQs and match, drag and drop. As I said, there's no negative marking here. And the question types also vary. There are 10 questions to answer in each part. In the writing task, there are 2 tasks to complete. One is an interactional task. So here they are given an email or they respond to a forum or social media post. 3 bullet points that have to be covered both at the B1 and the B2 level. The number of words vary. For B1, it is 70 to 100. B2, it's 100 to 140. Part 2 is a discursive task where they write a discursive piece in response to a written stimulus. And there are 3 bullet points that are given at each level, both for B1 and B2. The number of words increase for B2. It's 200 words that they have to write, and they cannot write less than 150. So that's the summary of all the 4 sections. For you to get a feel of what the test is like, you could go to our website, skillsforenglish.com, test prepare. And you will get a feel of the test at each level. That is B1 how it is and B2 how it is. And you can also show it to your students to explain to them what the test is like. Now, some of the priorities for effective preparation and practice. It's the best thing to use the test preparation core resources that Mazhar has already run you through. These are standard, authentic pieces of test preparation resources. And I think as trainers, instead of relying on some party that has come up with content that we are not aware of whether it's authentic, it's better to look at the website and take all the resources, exploit the resources that are here. These are for you, so please do use them. The other negative part, or I would say negative point in using resources that are not authorized would bring down students' score because they're not probably preparing to standard. Now B1 and B2, there are certain standards. There are certain criteria that the student has to match. Now the test preparation materials that are not authentic may not match these standards, and therefore the test takers might not prepare effectively for the test. And for more information, for other FAQs, if you have other questions, you could also look at our website. And for other resources also. Now, test taker focused support resources. Of course, I spoke to you about the website. Mazhar has also spoken to you. These have free and easy to access range of resources. There are multiple things, and you can see that there was something for grammar, something for vocabulary. So when you look at this, you know what sort of linguistic features are required for the test. And these can be used by a teacher directly, or a student can also prepare themselves. Now, for example, a C2 level student or a C1 level student may not require help from a teacher except for guidance as to where to find this information. So you might just want to direct them to it and they could study themselves. Or you yourself might be planning to go to the UK and you could use these for self-study. And remember, new resources are being added regularly. So please do take a look at the website regularly. And these all these resources will help them to become test ready for sure. Now there are practice tests and preparation materials on the website, and you will see that there are B1 and B2 test taker guides, and they can prepare for success. There's practice before the test also. They can practice, which means they work on the language features and skills separately, and then they take the practice test. And there's also a CFR level finder from A1 to C2. Now the student, if they feel that they are at a B1 level, they could attempt the B1 test and see how they fare on it. And if they feel that it's a little too easy, they could try the next one. So level finder is completely free. You could actually go and try it out on the website. I strongly recommend you try it out. As trainers, I think it's a good idea for us also to try it out to see how it works, how to navigate around it, and how best you can use it in your class. Now, the other reason why this part is important is sometimes when we tell students, I think you should attempt a B2 because you're, or let's say there is a B1 level student who wants to take the B2 test. You could tell them, I think you should try the B1 first, or you could tell them, okay, try the B2 and see. I feel you probably might be at a B1 level, but you could always try. So when they try and they realize that the test is something that's a little beyond their level, they might accept what you say. So that way, you also are not giving them false information. They can see for themselves what level they are at. All right. And there are plenty of videos. Everything is available on the website. Test specifications, as I've already mentioned, these are also there. And information sheets, speaking and writing marking schemes are also there. Now, this part of it is something that I would encourage all trainers to look at, because it tells you what is required at each level. What I have given you is just a very brief, peep into the marking scheme. I would suggest that you take a look at all the levels, even for A2, A1 and all that, so that you know how a student can move from one level to the other. And you might also want to take a look at the CFR, because it gives you can-do statements at each level. What is the difference between an A1 level and an A2 level? And it's pretty extensive. You could take a look at it. And you could improve your own knowledge also. There are plenty of online providers that give you information, tests, practice materials that can be used here. And the other point that I would like to, other resource that I'd like to draw your attention to is the annotated responses. So in addition to giving the practice test, you also have responses that are given, which will give you an idea about what is expected at each level, what is a good response, and why is this a good response or a poor response. So annotated response are responses which have the subject matter experts feedback on the response. So this will give you a good idea about why particular response is at a particular level and is probably above or below. All right. Now, one more thing that I would like to add here is about the practice tests. Now, quite often students want a lot of practice tests and they immediately start doing the tests one after the other. But that's not the way to go about with the practice test. I would say do the diagnostic test, which is completely free. Once you have an idea, let them go through a training and then attempt the first mock test, go through another round of training, feedback and everything, and then try the second test. So using the test, free test judiciously is important. Again, there are plenty of resource materials that are also available against payment. There are digital copies and hard copies. And there are also free practice tests that they can assess. There are downloadable versions of practice tests too at all levels. And all the audio clips are also available on the website. All right. So teacher focused support resources are also there. It's very easy to access all this. And as I said, new materials are being added. Teachers, please do take a look. And we hope your test takers get the best results they hope for. All right. So I've already spoken about all this and I'll move on. Now there are also students, sometimes they start at a much lower level. These are some of the books that you could use if you want to start them off on a language course before you start preparing for the test. So you have A1 to C1 Delta Publishing on point course books, and you have Oxford publications and all that. So I think it's a good idea to take a look at these resources that are available to prepare your students. Now, quite often students take, they come and ask you, I think you yourself as trainers have this question, how can I onboard students from another test and from another exam board? What are some differences and similarities? How do I convince my students? So you might want to take a look at our website here, and this will give you a lot of information about it. And it can also help you to set up your course, the duration, and what are the priorities for the test taker, what should you work on, all right? And sometimes the question also is asked, should it is there a pen and paper test available? Why isn't a pen and paper test available? Today, all of us are moving towards a computer-based test. So preparing and gearing up for this is going to be very useful to them in their later life, because everywhere in their work life, professional life, personal life, later on it is only computer-based. We hardly write anything on paper these days. All right. And when they take a level test, they also know at what level they are, and you can help them to prepare to reach the next level. The beauty of the CELT exam, the CELT test, is that when you know which test you're going to take, you don't have to over prepare. You don't have to go beyond that. You can prepare for that level and you can get your scores. All right. So I would suggest that you take a look at all these, all the website and all these resources, and also the videos for you to help your students. Now, switching is quite easy. Of course, our team will be talking to you about this a little bit more in detail if you have any questions. Now, as I already said, there is no face-to-face assessor here. This test is pretty easy. It's affordable, and it's all completely on computer. Navigation is quite easy. They just need to practice a little bit, and it focuses on what the test taker needs. So for each level, they have a pass, fail, or if it's a B2 level, we're also looking at merit. And it's a one session test. They're not sitting multiple times. And there is a clear supported test preparation path when you go to the website, and our team, everybody is here to help you prepare your students the best way, and also to guide you when they actually start applying outside. The portal is very easy to navigate through. The booking platform, as Mazhar has already showed you how to book their test, and the test availability. All these things are all this information is available on the website. You can take a look at it, and the navigation is pretty simple. You could see that Mazhar just clicked on one or two buttons, and voila, he was there already, ready to register for the test. All right, and finding resources also was pretty easy. And the results, as on the first day, that is yesterday, Prakash already told you that the turnaround is very fast, very rapid. You get it within 48 hours, or max between 3 to 5 days, you'll get your results. And this is one of the fastest growing high stakes English test. And you will see that the number of institutes that are recognizing it, it's growing all the time. So if you need more information about how to switch from one test to the other, there's information for all of you in this guide. Now, some of you might have a little, seed of doubt somewhere in your mind about the comparison with the different tests. So here is the skills for English, which is mapped to the Common European Framework of Reference for Language for UKVI purposes, but you can also see how it maps to the other international English language qualifications. So B1 pass with merit, and B pass, it's that B1 CEFR level, and PT would be about 43 to 58, and you would see in the IELTS it is 4 to 5 band, and the score is 42 in TOEFL. B2 would be 72 the score, and with IELTS it matches between 4 and 5 and 6.5 bands, and the score for PTE would be 59 to 75. CFR is at the B2 level. You could take a look at the other levels also to get an idea about what the students should score for each of the other levels. That's A1, A2, and C1, C2. Our focus today, since it's been B1, B2, I thought I would just highlight these. All right. So that's about the comparison, qualification comparison. Now, do you have any questions? We'd be very happy to take up your questions. I'm sure you're bursting with a lot of questions. So over to all of you.
Oh, that was quite a day. Veena, would you like to have some water?
Good, thank you.
Before we let you slip through, sipping around your beverage, I see there is a lot of chatter around some time limit during the speaking section. Would it be okay if I just read one of those? It's just right there, fresh off, and we
Please
can
go ahead.
just, yeah. Okay, so Farheen writes, if a student is given 5 to 6 minutes of speaking time, what is the minimum amount of time they should spend speaking?
An excellent question, actually. So, right at the beginning, when we were doing the speaking section, the one of the instructions was to speak for as long as they can, you know. And if they have extra time, it also means that they haven't extended enough. Now, the duration is given to a student because that much of information is required, and you would need that many points to fit into that particular time. So, if the student has not done that, it means they have not done justice to the response. They have not completed their response. So I would say it's better to continue. They could use these connecting words. They could say a point that I forgot to add, something that I would like to say here, something, you know, in addition to this, and you could add some more information. That's perfectly all right, because when speaking, sometimes we forget. So you could add information later on. And if you still have extra time, then probably just a couple of seconds, you could think about summarizing and then concluding also. That's something probably that the student has missed. So one is extension, using discourse markers in your speech, signposting appropriately, and then maybe dividing it into different sections, and concluding and summarizing is something that the student could do. I hope
Okay,
I've
so
answered the question.
yeah, and there is no like 30 seconds, 1 minute, 20 seconds, the minimum.
There's no minimum as such, but
Okay.
if they can continue to speak, then they're giving the examiner more opportunities to test them on their language. They're showing off the best skills, you know. You would like to give as much as possible so that you can be assessed. Now, sometimes what happens is when one is nervous, you might you might not have started off very well, but maybe, you know, about half a minute later, you realize, okay, I have some more ideas now. So it's all right. You can start and then, you know, continue. Even then it is all right, but let it not be a very short response, because short responses do not get you marks.
Okay. So maybe the midway through, probably a healthy point wherein suppose if it's a 5 minute conversation, and I think that's what Ankit is saying, part two is up to 5 minutes. So I don't know, in my little wisdom and knowledge, say like the anywhere between 2 to 3 minute marker. Is that a good suggestion? Suggestion.
Well, the again coming back to what the assessment criteria suggests is that they continue to speak for as much time as they can, because
Mm-hmm.
they need to extend each point, and they might want to add an example there. So when they do all this, I think very safely they would have covered all this time. But if they have finished, there's nothing one can do about it. They finish and that's it. And if it's a good response, it has completed the task, the language is good, the coherence, cohesion, they have covered all the parameters for assessment, they might get their marks.
Cool. That makes sense. All right. So I have kept a few questions ready for you. Uh, all right. So it's uh, to start with, it's from Manish, and they would like us to know. They would like to know that why are B2 listening test 4 MP3 test 4 MP3 is not available along with. Okay, Manish, I think that's a feedback. We'll work on it and we'll try to make the audios in a downloadable version, just as we have for B1. We'll try to get the clips added to the practice test. Well, I can't promise you right away. However, that's a good suggestion. We can try to incorporate that in our website. Uh, okay, well, this is something specific to the test. Is there an option to drag and drop the word from the text into the blanks, like in IELTS, so that they don't make mistakes in spellings?
Okay, would you like to answer that, or would you like me to answer it?
If you can start, I will add.
All right, if it's fill in the blanks where they are supposed to write the word from the text, then they have to read the word and then write the correct spelling. All right. If there is a drag and drop option, which is there generally in choices where they have multiple words and they have to select out of it, then that would be a drag and drop option. So fill in the blanks, they would generally have to fill the word themselves.
Okay, I think I really don't have to add to that. It's well covered. Thanks, Meena. Okay, so Saleha, uh, as you said in reading part, student is able to read the previous question. If he or she felt that the answer is not correct, are they able to start it over as from the first one question or just the only previous one? I think it's to do with uh, the reading part. Okay, okay, for the reading component. Okay, so I think till the time you have not submitted the that particular section, you can revisit. There is like a navigation strip, and you can click on it to move on. So in a way, you can revisit and look at the responses that has been submitted. Please add if I am if I have not covered everything in my response.
I think that's how it is. They see the blue buttons right at the bottom and
Yeah,
they can click on the response that they want to go back to and they can check it.
correct.
But I'm not sure if it is available in listening, because listening, they continue with it and they're done with that particular question. Two times they listen to it and they finish that section, and I think it gets submitted. Then they move on to the next one. Due
Yeah,
to paucity of time, they can't keep going back to the previous one in the listening section, I guess.
yeah. I think the remaining three components they can revisit their uh, that particular question. Okay, so Ayushi has a question. In speaking session, the time frame is 5 to 7 minutes. However, I want to quickly write down what is the minimum time. Okay, I think we have covered the minimum time. Manoj wants to know, are there some books available with practice tests for this? Yes, Manoj, we do have some books in circulation in the Indian market, and depending on your location, which you can feel free to type on the chat box, we can route you to our nearest test center who will be able to provide the level specific book that can help your test taker. Mm, okay, again, this is a good question. In reading, are students able to see passage and questions on parallel screen?
Yes, they do. So unless it's the full passage that they have to read, where they are matching paragraphs to maybe the heading, then they'll have to scroll up and down in the paragraph. But otherwise, they see the question and they see the text along with it, the text and the question.
Okay. Uh, the next question I think is more to do with it's the same for the speaking session. I think that's all the questions I have picked up from chat, unless Prakash, I have missed anything.
I
Prakash?
think there is.
Mubashra has their hands up.
Yes, Mubashra, would you like to unmute?
Uh, uh,
We can't hear you.
Okay, let me try to unmute Muba. Okay, we have also got Desmond. Okay, Desmond, would you like to unmute?
Yes,
Sure,
thanks
go
for the
ahead with the
session.
question. Yeah, thank
Yes,
you.
I just posted it. I'm asking, is there a training exam to certify someone as an SELT trainer?
Uh, no, not yet.
There's no official examination or course. So what we do is provide these master training sessions, which you can then say you've been trained by a master trainer to give you kind of that in-depth knowledge of how the test is run. But at the moment, that is what we offer, and we will do this again. So it's not the last time. So we will do refreshers as well. Maza, are we sending out the post attendance certificates again, like we always do?
Yes.
Digital certificate. So everyone will be receiving a digital certificate saying that they did participate in the Skills for English South Master Training, and you can then add that to your LinkedIn profile, to any of your social media. You can print it out and put it on your wall. So you will get something official as it can be.
Absolutely. And we do have a big announcement, but I think Mubashra, I can't find you. Okay, so yes, what we are trying to do is that apart from uh, a certification of you being a Skills for English trainer, we also want to empower you to support your customers or test takers or candidates who you're working with. We're going to give you a unique link so you can start registering and at the same time earning for every test that you are booking. For every test that you book as a Skills for English CELT exam, you will earn 10% commission on a monthly or a quarterly basis. This is the way we do our bookkeeping. I repeat, you will get a unique link and a set of instructions that you can use to start booking your clients for the exam and start earning right away. 10% commission. I hope that's exciting and we see a lot of registrations from all of you. Great. Let me try to find Mubashra again.
I
I
see a
think
question
Mubashra.
from Divya. Sorry. I
No,
see a question from Divya.
okay. Yeah, all right.
She wants to know in writing task 1 and 2 timed, which means if the student exceeds 20 minutes, does the screen automatically move to task 2? If I'm not mistaken, it's 1 hour entirely. That's why, they need to be judicious about their time management, how much time they spend on each task so that they don't, waste too much time on one task and forget about the other one. So they can toggle between the two. They can start with task 2 and then move to task 1, if I'm not mistaken. Is that possible?
That, yes, but if they run over the time limit, it will move on to the next task or the component accordingly.
Yes. And task 2 being the second task, I think after the time limit, it will automatically close.
That's correct, and move on to the next component.
Yeah, so it's better to start with task 1 and move to task 2.
Correct. Any more question?
I think somebody had asked who takes the test, something in the Q&A.
I think the less picked up. It was more to do with the trainer certification sort of a question.
Okay, guys,
Thank you,
so I
Patrick.
think since it's 9 past 11 now, I think perhaps it's time for us to wish everyone an amazing weekend. You will be receiving a follow-up, as Maz said, with all the information that we have spoken about, links to everything that you might need, as well as link to a feedback form. I think Prakash is going to put the link in the chat